Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Ha In, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Ha, good afternoon. Thank you for making time today.
Good afternoon.
Well, let's start with Wall Street, where stocks continued to rise overnight, shaking off concerns about the Omicron variant and its impact. The Dow's gained 800 points in the past two sessions. Korean stocks today also lifted by that rally. The KOSPI, though, still not back to 3,000 points. What's the story in the markets today?
Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 261.91 points, which is 0.74%, and S&P 500 rose 47.33 points, 1.02%, and Nasdaq rose 180.81 points, which is 1.18%. Food and Drug Administration granted emergency use of authorization for the Pfizer COVID pill, the first oral antiviral drug against the virus. The Americans can use the pill in a week when they are infected with the COVID virus. This news relieved the worries of investors about the Omicron variant, which has caused a huge drops in the stock prices a few days ago. And Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, said he completed the sales of 10% of his share, so the Tesla rose 7.49%. Korean stock market prices also rose today. KOSPI rose 13.69 points, which is 0.46%, and the KOSDAQ rose 3.18 points, which is 0.32%. Foreign investors and the institutional investors bought more in both markets. The relief from the COVID virus affected the Korean stock market positively also.
Right, and we've also seen the Korean government announcing that it's going to release more than 3 million barrels of oil from its emergency stockpiles. The U.S. and other countries opening up their reserves too to help bring down prices. It's a coordinated move, of course, announced last month. Tell us about that agreement and what effect you see it having.
Last month, November, United States, India, Japan, UK, China, and Korea agreed to release the strategic crude oil reserves. Announced amount of release are the 50 million barrels for the United States, and 1.5 million barrels for the United Kingdom, and 5 million barrels for the India, 4.2 million barrels for the Japan. In November, Chinese and the Korean government did not announce how much oil reserve they were releasing. Now, Korean government are releasing 3.17 million barrels. So up to now, the total amount of 63.87 million barrels of oil reserve will be releasing from 6 countries. This is the international cooperation to respond to the oil price hike. The high oil price is the main reason that we see high inflation around the globe. However, this is not going to lower the oil price that much. The world crude oil consumption per day is about 100 million barrels. So the total amount of oil reserve to release is less than 1 day world oil consumption. But the cooperation between China and United States has been very rare recently, so this cooperation has some meaning.
It is interesting to see China on that list of countries, Professor. And shifting gears a minute, the price of Bitcoin is up the past few days, getting back near $50,000. It's still far below the new high reached in November, and in the near term, there's no obvious sign that it's going back up to that high. What do you see happening in the crypto space?
According to the CNBC, there is 2 reasons why they have bearish views on the Bitcoin in coming year. First is the volatility of the Bitcoin. The price of the Bitcoin is very volatile. In 2018, the Bitcoin tumbles close to 3,000 after climbing to the high of nearly 20,000 a few months earlier. The Bitcoin surged to the record high of almost 69,000 in November, as you said, It's now sitting below 50,000, down almost 30% from its peak. The Wall Street wisdom defines the bear market as a decline of 20% or more from the recent high. The second reason, the regulation on the cryptocurrencies. China completely banning all crypto-related activities, and the United States authorities cracking down on certain aspects of the market. The SEC mentioning the cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin and Ethereum are not securities. There might be regulatory changes on the cryptocurrencies, and they would reduce the investors' appetite on them.
Well, finally, Professor, the Bank of Korea has released a report on the country's financial stability here in the latter half of the year, and it says the property market is overheated, prices having risen by the most in 25 years. It also says that if inflated asset prices take a hit, then economic growth could fall to 3%. What do you make of this report, Professor?
Yeah, according to the Bank of Korea Financial Stability Report, it assumes that the chance of the asset bubble burst is about 10%. And if there is an international asset bubble burst, it anticipates a negative 3% of the GDP growth, as you said. And there are only 3 years of negative growth in Korean economic history, 1980, 1998, and 2020. Last year, GDP growth was negative 1% due to pandemic. And the 1998 recorded a negative 5.1% due to the foreign exchange crisis. So Bank of Korea thinks the asset bubble burst would result in a bigger shock to the economy than the pandemic. When the asset price bubble burst, we can expect the household would bankrupt on their debt. And Korean economy has shown the rapid growth of household debt recently. So if a household who bears the large debt would go bankrupt, then they will reduce their consumption. And lack of demand will result to the reduction in the investment. Therefore, the GDP will be reduced. So in order to prevent such a negative impact of asset bubble burst, the Bank of Korea should be very careful when they are normalizing the monetary policy. When Bank of Korea increase the key interest rate, they should be careful not to cause the plummeting of asset prices.
Right. It's going to be a delicate balance to strike. Professor, we'll have to leave it there. We've appreciated you coming on the program, and we thank you for your insights, as always.
Thank you for having me.